Street cred sports. Street cred sports. I'm crossing over. I'm Euro stepping.
Hello, this is Keenan of Street Cred Sports Training, and welcome to another episode of Time to Ball. We are on episode 65, people. Hope y'all are doing well. I know I missed last week. I had a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, I know it sounds like that's yeah, man. You always say you got a lot of stuff going on. I was actually going out of town, so I was trying to get everything taken care of, to figure out if I was going to stay at my current location, dealing with new trainers, dealing with a new system. So it was a bit much, and I feel like y'all deserve my best. So I didn't think I could be at my best last week. Plus, I was supposed to be leaving town, which didn't happen, by the way, because that crazy low pressure was popping up hailstorms and huge and tornadoes between El Paso and Dallas, which is where I was driving. So I was like, nah, your boy's not gonna end up in Kansas somewhere. Tornado catching his car somewhere outside of Abilene, Texas, and next thing you know, I'm in Kansas. So hope everybody's doing well. I'm doing what I do. Shout out to those of you who are doing what you do. Keep it going. So without further ado, let me get into things that interest me. I want to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves versus Denver. I was excited for this series for a few reasons. Last year they played, Denver beat them 4-1. But if you look back at that series, as I kept putting out, Minnesota had a ton of low IQ ball plays. And those low IQ plays happened at crucial times that could have allowed them to win certain games. Now, I'm not saying they would have beat Denver. Denver had it rolling. But instead of 5-1, that series is probably going 7 in a couple of those games. I always said I did like Minnesota, and I want to say I mentioned it back then, that I did like them. They frustrated me with those low IQ plays. They still make them. Cat makes a ton of them. I don't know why he is why he files and then has these facial expressions like I didn't file. But yeah, he hurts them with his files, but they've gotten better and they've overcome those low IQ ball plays from time to time, because they still make them, but they don't make them as much, and they're clicking. So they've gotten better. They've exposed Denver, and last year, it was always something. I was like, you know what? They win, they play good, but it's like, it's just something. Like, I got to give, because everybody, when you win, yeah, there's usually luck involved in some form of fashion, meaning, you're healthy, no injuries. Maybe you get a call or two from certain games that help. Maybe some team that you're playing, somebody gets hurt and they're not 100%. So those things can happen. And I look back, and last year, they were the number 1 seed. They beat Minnesota, okay, which was an 8 seed. Then the next series, they beat Phoenix. Phoenix was on the decline because they were about to break that whole team up. Those guys were not involved at all, right? They had gotten rid of some guys. They had KD. So they were still just trying to figure out what to do, okay? They beat them. Then in the championship, they played the Lakers who beat Golden State, who I felt would have possibly beaten or taken Denver to 7 because they always play them well. Well, the Lakers were a bad matchup for Denver, or Denver's a bad matchup for the Lakers. Lakers get into the play-in tournament and get all the way through. So they beat a 8 seed, a 4 seed, and was it a 7 seed? I think the Lakers were a 7 seed. They ended up being the 7th seed. So it was 7 and 8, or I think Minnesota was 7, or I can't remember. I'll double check as I'm talking. But in any case, they ended up going to the finals to play who else? Miami, who's another team who happened to be coming through the play-in tournament and ends up being, uh, in the championship. They beat Boston, who was the number 1 seed at that time. So you have those things. They end up winning, right? They win. They had a successful season this year. They've always been pretty good, but they haven't been what you might call like a juggernaut. And I was interested to see if this year how they would match up because the West was so stacked. And okay, so here it is. I got it from the West. Timberwolves were the 8th seed. They played the Suns. They beat the Suns, who was the 4th seed. The Lakers were the 7th seed. So yeah, that's how that went. So they beat the Lakers. Like, they own the Lakers. I hate to say it, but they own the Lakers in this current construction. They can't match up with them. Minnesota posed a different problem for them, and I was interested to see how they were going to match up, and they really destroyed Denver. The second game was just and now people are wondering if they're going to get swept because they lost their first 2 games at home. I can see Denver winning 1, maybe 2 games in some way, but I don't see they have a formula, and that formula looks like it's a bad matchup. So was it luck for Denver last year? Of course, but you could say that about a lot of teams. A lot of teams, when they win, it's like, oh, well, they played this team, they didn't play this team. This team won, but they were hurt and stuff. So, yeah, I wanted to see them play against the best. So I figured, you know what? Denver comes in and takes care of business. They beat Minnesota. And then if they beat Minnesota, then they're going to play the OKC or the Mavericks, who have given them problems. If they beat whoever wins out of that and they get to the finals, that's well deserved, in my opinion, competitive wise. And then if they play Boston and beat Boston, then to me there are no blemishes unless players are hurt. That's the only way you can say, oh well, these players are hurt. But they got it. Somebody has to win. So I don't know if that's going to if that series is going to go more than 4. But we'll see. They're a champion. They are a champion. But this last game, it just looked different for them. I think they, sometimes you can have that resolve on your face that, man, we can't beat them. The same resolve that the Lakers, who didn't want to admit it, but you could see it in almost every game, they had that look like, man, we can't beat them. You're up 20, you lose. Man, we can't beat them. So sometimes you have that look, okay? All right, now I want to bring this up, and it's interesting because I'm bringing this up, and it was for something else, but I'm going to use this as an example. When a team starts to win despite of you, I feel like you become expendable. All right, so I'll use Karl Anthony Towns. I'm not saying he's expendable, but the Timberwolves have won games in series without Karl Anthony Towns being a big factor because of some of the things that he tends to do, bonehead plays, mainly fouls. He gets fouls. Some players, they're just prone to fouling. They don't really know how to play defense without fouling. The only thing that kills me about him is he fouls and then he looks like I didn't foul him when the replay clearly shows that you whacked the shit out the person, right? But I'll just use him for an example. Let's say they're winning despite your bad play, on offense or defense. Let's say it becomes such a problem with him defensively that his offensive production doesn't help the fact that that they're losing games, and they can clearly point to he's the trigger, right? When you have those things, that's when you understand that you're expendable. That's when, as a player, you can probably see the writing on the wall that, you know what, this might be the end of me playing with that team. It's time for me to move on. They're gonna actually end up moving on, and you can look at the history. When every year, there are players that get traded or waived in both sports and in all sports, and you can kind of see that these players were really good, but the team starts to win despite of them. You become expendable, and that's kind of how it is. So you want to make sure that you're always the reason that your team wins. So Karl Anthony Towns isn't there yet. It just popped in my head because I was talking about how he makes these bonehead plays. So, but he's not the reason for this. It was just a thought as I was watching games. Okay. If your playing time is cut, instead of looking at others, ask yourself, why is it cut? Is your defense bad? Is your shooting bad? Are you having low IQ? People generally aren't taken out for nothing, right? So I say that because you look at some teams, and okay, so I'll use off the top of my head Josh Giddey for OKC. He was looking to be like one of the main cogs of that team maybe a year or two ago. But now Chet Holmgren comes. Obviously, Shea is ascended. You got these other kids that are really doing well. Wiggins, Williams, they're really doing well. And it looks like Josh, his 3-point shooting is turning out to be something that hampers them offensively. Teams are leaving him open. His minutes have really started to tamper down. He's not playing the big minutes that he used to play. So my question would be to Josh, rather than cite the coach, why do you think your minutes are being? Because I'm sure you're gonna ask, hey man, why are my minutes going down? Like, look, man, they're targeting you, right? They're leaving you open, and if you can't hit shots, it hurts the flow of the offense. Okay, so Josh should obviously is gonna hurt this year, but he needs to get into his shot. I could fix his shot just watching him shoot. But in any case, I'm sorry, it's hard for me to watch games now without analyzing everything. But that's just kind of how it's turned what it's turned into for me. But he needs to get in, not really fixed, but makes his 3-point percentage go up, because it's happened. I can't think of who it is. His percentage was like 29% last year, and this year it's almost at 40. Maybe it'll come to me, but it was a player who was being targeted like that. So sometimes it's something that you have to look at. If you're consistently fouling, like I'll use Karl Anthony Towns. You're consistently fouling. You make some low IQ ball plays, but your offense is such and your skill set is such that it helps the team. But if your minutes start to dwindle, those are the things that you could look to and say, hey, this is why I'm not. I can even go to, what's his name? Tucker. Tucker from with the Clippers. And he was part of the Houston. He was part of Houston when Houston with James Harden, and he's played with him with James Harden a lot. And, he's kind of, his minutes have went by. And the reason why I think his minutes have went by lower is because PJ Tucker, he hasn't provided much on the offensive end. And, it used to be that you could get away with that not shooting or shooting and stuff like that, and he missing shots. But the NBA evolves, the games change, and you know, it doesn't look like he was much of an asset to the Clippers with all of the people that they had that could defend just almost as well as he could, but they also could shoot. And he was really upset about it. But like there was a point where he was pretty good from that corner three. I don't know what happened, but he's not been reliable. So that's kind of something that you have to look at when your playing time is cut, because in high school and in middle school and in the city leagues and college and stuff, I have kids and parents say, well, he's not playing that much, and then I have to talk to them about, look, these are the things you got to look at, and you got to talk to the coach and find out, and then we can put a plan in place to try to get you in. But if you're struggling in those areas, it's gonna be hard to get on the floor if other players are excelling in those areas. All right, so now last thing I want to touch on. Well, next thing I want to touch on is I got a question. Do you think that the age determines missed calls? Here's what I mean. A lot of games you're seeing referees make bad calls, right? And I'm wondering if a ref can't get in position to make the call because he's not as fast as he needs to be to get in that position. They either assume the call or they don't make it because they're not there. So I've seen refs, now not so much in the professional level because I haven't worked on it. I mean, watched the refs as much. But when I've watched games live, being there, I've often seen referees struggle to get up and down the court in a proper manner to be in position to make said call that needed to be made. And often they just, they assume that it was a foul or whatever, and it's a bad call. So I'm wondering if age has something to do with that. Obviously, having older refs, you have more experience. You should be able to determine things. You have a lot of knowledge when it comes to understanding situations and stuff like that. You're probably going to have a little bit cooler rapport with players, understanding how to talk to them and not be so authoritative as a referee, because you can kick people out of games and stuff. Younger ones don't have that. They come in, they want to try to make sure they're asserting themselves and stuff. They haven't seen enough. So there might be situations where they make a bad call because they don't have the experience, right? So you do need older refs, but what's the sweet spot as far as age? What's the requirement? Should they be able to run a 4.4 and 90 and 4.4 in the 40? Should their lateral quickness be good? What's their eyesight? What is it that they need? I wonder what is it that you need to require to have them. But I've been questioning this. You look at some of these bad games, and it's like in the NBA, you tend to have it. It seems like it. Sometimes it seems like it doesn't matter if it's an older ref or a younger ref, right? But I wonder if there's something where if you had like, okay, we want to have refs between the ages of 30 and 50, right? Those refs that are refereeing in that age, we see the least amount of bad calls, missed calls, out of place calls, and stuff like that. I've always wondered about that. If that's a thing, and that was just because I was watching the game and the referee made a call and he wasn't in position, and he shouldn't have made that call, and he made it, and obviously he's not going to turn around and say, my apologies. Well, actually, there's been a few times where they'll say an inadvertent whistle. That's how they cover themselves. But you rarely see them say, hey, my apologies. I was not in position when I made that call. I should not have made that call. Therefore, the ball will go to, they usually just, I messed up, but we're going to keep playing. So I wonder if there's something to it. I wonder if there's some kind of, experiment that they could do where they kind of pull all this data. They put in data for everything else. I wonder if that would work. All right, so I wasn't gonna touch on this, but this was something that I saw this morning, and so I do want to bring it up. Um, Caitlin Clark, she's making her. She's played a preseason WNBA game, and she's starting to do her thing. And it was announced today that they've made I think a $5 million or $50 million investment into getting the WNBA players, charter planes, charter transportation. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, back in the day, when you had the NBA players, they used to fly commercial, right? Now you have guys who are 6'10", 7 feet flying commercial, and they often have hard time with room and stuff with their feet and legs. So once the money started becoming prevalent, they started having charter planes that could actually, seat the players better and stuff to make them more comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that if you could afford it to do it. WNBA players haven't had that luxury. Now with Caitlin Clark coming in, and I believe, they asked her about something like that, and it's been something that's been said for a while, and now, I believe she speaks up on it. Now they're doing something about it. Okay, so I'm loving it, and I'm really loving. I love me some Caitlin Clark. I love me some Paige. I love me some Juju, some Raven, some Angel Reese. I'm loving all these players. I was having a discussion with the missus about it, and I was saying, it does kind of bother me that it seems like she's catching flack, and it's like, well, the only reason they're doing all of this is because this is one of my wife saying this, but we were discussing it. It was I've heard people on social media saying, "Oh, the only reason they're doing this is because she's white," and I'm like, no, that's not it. That's not it. The reason they're doing this is because of what she brings to the table. You think about what Steph did, right? The one thing that women that obviously I'm not saying I don't want to go men versus women thing, but in basketball, the athleticism of men is what really takes the game to a different stratosphere when you're watching them. The dunks, the contorting their body in the air when they're shooting layups and stuff. You don't see women do that. They don't generally have the athleticism. Now, you taking it as shooting. Now you have somebody who shoots lights out from deep like Steph does. Now you got something that you can compare to. And you see how electrifying Steph still is, and what in his heyday, how big he was and how he was transforming the sport. And I think that's what Caitlyn is doing. To me, it doesn't matter, her color. If she was, she was a sister balling like that, shooting like that, bringing that attention like that, it would be the same. It would be the same. Now, obviously, it's my opinion, but I'm just looking at the people who are looking at her. Now, she's selling out stadiums. She has a following. It's more than just people are watching her. The everyday people are watching to see what she does. When Magic and Bird came into the league was on tape delay. They not revolutionized the game, but they brought it to the forefront, and they made it more exciting. And then Jordan came and showed people stuff that you weren't like, what did he just do? And he was charismatic. He was electrifying with his dunks and how he hung in the air. And then he was winning. And that transformed, took the NBA revenue to a higher place. So when you have it to where you have that person where people are going to gravitate to, and businesses want them to sponsor, and they're going to pour money, it's great for everybody. So why not just appreciate the fact that she's going to help this game to where more people are casually going to be looking at the game, right? Looking at the game, it's a good thing. Don't turn it into something bad, because, man, she can ball now. Everybody going at her, and she know it. because there are some people in the NBA like, man, I was balling and I wasn't getting that kind of, yeah, but you weren't shooting and scoring at a high clip the way this girl was. There are a lot of girls that could score, but nobody was pulling up like that from where she is on a normal basis. Just like it's like you're shooting free throws. That's Steph quality, and that's why people gravitate to Steph. So I'm loving it, and I see it's a positive, and if it's a positive, it's going to end up doing well for everybody. Everybody's gonna eat, and sometimes you gotta acknowledge that. Hey, you know what? It's because of this person. Now, if there are gonna be some people that are gonna be like, oh well, I'm not giving that person a do. That's fine. That's fine. You full of shit. That's easy. You full of shit. Everybody recognizes. You hear Charles Barkley say it now. He thanks Michael. He thanks Magic and Bird first for bringing the league to a place where it was starting to be more recognizable. But then he thanks Michael for bringing it, for putting all that money in everybody's pockets. So you stay on her bad side and watch what happens. The reporter from Indiana, it was a weird guy. He made a little weird comment about her signature heart thing that she does with her hand, and that's a family thing that she does. And he made a comment that was kind of awkward and weird. Yeah, his ass got suspended. Like, yo, you can't be messing with the cash cow right now. And I'm all for it. Yo, use your platform, Miss Clark, to better the game. Put money and put butts in the seat. Inspire these little girls, to want to play, to work on their game. I'm all for it. I think it's amazing because it was going to take, anybody knows it, you got to have that player that transcends the sport. I think she is. Jordan, Magic, Bird, Jordan, they transcended the sport. Obviously, there are a lot of great players that have come around, but if you look at the history, those were spikes. Curry transcended the sport with how he shoots. There's another spike. So, yeah, it's important to have those, and just because it wasn't because of you doesn't mean that you can't benefit. See how these contracts start going. She got a contract. I think her contract as a number one pick was $78,000 per year for like 3 years. But she got a Nike contract of either $8 million or $28 million. Look that up to see what her Nike contract was. As I'm sitting up here, Nike deal, $28 million over 8 years. $28 million over 8 years. So you mean to tell me that she's just a fan? Nike that gave the girl most money that they've given a girl ever, and she's gonna sell. She's gonna sell shoes. She's gonna make them money. So enjoy it, people, and stop trying to make it out of something it's not. I'm rolling with her, and I'm about to reintroduce my brand that I had 3-4 years ago that I wasn't really putting out, but it's the female version because I know that kind of stuff really inspires, and I have a lot more girls that I'm training. So I need to step my game up and make sure these young girls know that, hey, you can be like a Caitlin Clark if you want. You just got to work hard. All right, now for my basketball ideology. All right, so this first one, I'm gonna speak in general. I'm not gonna be specific, but I have noticed that some college coaches are a little more deceptive in their practices. I'm not feeling it. Okay, so what do you mean, Kay, when you say they deceptive? And I feel like this, you can't expect kids to follow a certain level of grace, in trying to appease you or get you to notice them when it comes to playing. Because think about it, coaches go background, they talk to other coaches about them, like high school. They look at their social medias and stuff. They get a feel for them. So you gotta check a lot of boxes on any level. Right? Some higher levels, you got to check more boxes, but you still got to check boxes for a coach to commit because they're going to be spending money on you, and I get all of that. But then as a coach, you need to have that same, energy when it comes to same thing with the kids. So if you're asking for all of this information, you know, grades, film, you're kind of going the back way, you're talking to them on a regular basis. You're all but talking about how interested you are. You're wanting them to come and, visit your campus. All signs point to there being an offer. That's to me, that's where all of those signs point to. Somebody can come on and say, "Nah, okay, that ain't." But the history, what I've been dealing with, what I've seen from talking to coaches, college coaches, scouts, that's usually where it's headed to. You're not trying to have all of this communication with them unless it's something about their film that you don't like. If you see a player's film and you don't like their film, you're not going to be trying to call and contact and have them to come out to your campus. That's when you're like making your final cuts and stuff. But the problem I have is you're having these kids to do all of this and they're communicating, and then you don't respond anymore. So like if a kid sends you film, you're messaging, you're calling, you're talking to the kid, kid's talking to you, you're asking the kid what that kid thinks about, your program. You go see the kid play. You like what the kid did in the game. You talk to the kid more afterwards. You tell him you're going to call him so you could set up a visit so that kid could come up there when you pretty much had kind of offered him maybe. So in indirectly sounded like you, all signs pointed that you had offered him before, but you're going to offer him to make sure everything's good. Right? You're going to offer them when they come up there, or you're going to let them go to campus and go through the whole thing. And then when the kid contacts you to set it up, they're crickets. Or you call a kid, college coach calls a kid, and they're really interested in stuff, tell them how much they love to play and stuff. And then throughout the year, the kid, is messaging their coach just to kind of keep them up to date with what they're doing and just see how their coach is doing. And you never respond back. Now, okay, no, I'm not making this up. I actually have, as they say now, that I have receipts that prove, because some of them are kids that I work with. Some of this is other information that's been given to me. That's why I'm not naming names. I can't name names because it's not fair to just out somebody like that. Now, if it's something egregious, where there was a situation with a coach. I'll put it this way. There was a college in Colorado. The only reason I'm not saying the name is because I can't remember the actual name of the school. But there's a school in Colorado that don't like to recruit black people. And this has been said because the person who told me this has had numerous kids over the years where this kind of stuff is happening. My question is, why do you keep sending it? And the answer is, well, you think that it's because of other things, but it makes sense now. Right? So, okay, that's it. Look, I ain't mad at you if you don't want to recruit black people. That's fine. If you're gonna be an all white Christian school, or I'm not saying it's Christian college, but if you're gonna be an all white school and you're only recruiting white players, that's fine. Just put it out there. Don't try to look at film and waste your time trying to talk to me and recruit me if you know damn well you don't want to recruit. And if you bring me there, what I'm coming into is not going to be a conducive environment for growth. I'm going to be harassed. I'm going to be, kind of made fun of or belittled in certain ways. Those kind of things made to feel uncomfortable where I'm made to basically quit. Yeah, don't do it. There are a lot of coaches out there that will say they're going to recruit kids. They get the kids there, and then they change. Y'all got to be held accountable, man. Y'all got to be held to more of a higher standard than what you hold these kids to. They're kids. Of course they're going to do dumb things as kids because that's what kids do. But ghosting a kid that's went through everything to give you all of this information, that's tried to work on scheduling to come out there to visit your campus and to see what the fit is, and you don't, the kid calls you 3-4 times, messages you 3 or 4 times, you don't respond? Man, fuck that. And the thing that I notice is now, okay, all right, that's fine. Somewhere down the road, maybe that coach is at that school, or maybe that coach is at another school. Maybe that coach likes a player up here so much so that they're coming. You know what my obligation is? My obligation is to always be transparent. And my obligation will allow me to let that family know, well, you know what? This coach tried to recruit a kid a few years ago. Kid was excited about going, messaged them after the coach saw the kid play, and the coach never responded. Never responded and said, hey, you know what? We got, I mean, I'm not even saying you got to be truthful. You can actually lie, because I know a lot of them do. I know a lot of people lie. You, as a coach, you could say, hey, you know what? I appreciate your stuff, but you know what? We ended up signing, so we're full. You could just say that we signed. Unfortunately, we don't have any room. Good luck with your endeavors. If something changes, I'll let you know. You could do that. That could be not truthful, because if you start a new program, I'm not saying that a school start a new program, but if you start a new program, you know you got spots. If a lot of kids in the transfer portal, you know you got spots. But the kid doesn't know that unless he looks at your roster and he investigates. But kids aren't going to really do that. Maybe parents, but you're not really going to do that because you're trying to latch on. You're trying to get to a team. But some of them don't even do that. They don't even take the time to just say, look, you know what? It's not, I looked at your, be truthful. I looked at your film. I don't feel that you can play in our conference. I don't feel like your level of play is going to be able to sustain itself with the competition we play. That doesn't mean I don't think you could play college ball. That don't mean I don't think you could play for some other school. I just don't feel you can play at the level that we need. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're not like, look, I think you're a good player. I just like your height. You know, if you're this high, if you're 5'7", 5'8", man, most guards in our conference are over 6 feet. Most teams play a lot of man to man. We play a lot of man to man. We don't do we help, but we don't try to do things different. So if you're switched on a 6'4" guy, and that guy's trying to post you up, now we have to scheme differently to aid you. That's not something I want to do, because then that takes extra stuff and we have to do different things. And I like to be set in my ways with how I do it, whatever the reason is. Okay. I'm just throwing something out there. But needless to say, what I'm trying to say is college coaches need to do a better job at being accountable, because if we hold these kids accountable, we need to be accountable. If you are not interested in a kid, tell that kid. Don't shit on the kid, but tell the kid. Be diplomatic. If you know you're not interested in this kid, don't start that dialogue that's going to make somebody interested. It's like if you go to the club. Well, I ain't gonna even say the club. I always make this club. If you meet somebody and that person kind of gives you like a little flirty look, a little smile, buys you something like a drink or something, comes over, talks to you. If you're both single, you kind of tend to think, hey, this person might be feeling me. Now you're kind of going through the motions, thinking through your days and weeks and months that maybe this person's interested, but maybe that person isn't really interested. That's the way they are. It's different ways, different things happen, and I really feel it's a travesty, because college coaches hold so much power, and they're looked upon, they're put on pedestals, and most of them for good reason, because of what they do. But some of them, man, it's wrong. It is wrong. Okay, so I had a discussion with somebody, and it made me think of this. Where you play high school matters. Where you play travel ball matters. And I think you're gonna see shifts more as some kids from some schools get college opportunities and some don't even have don't even if the talent is the same. So let me use a school from the El Paso area just so okay, so Chapin has been to the Elite Eight, I think, the past 3 years. Okay. So the talent is there. Kids are gravitating to that school because they feel like that school gives them the best opportunity to play, right? I'll use, let's say, a top EYBL Nike travel team. If it's the top team, one of the top teams in the country, you're going to always get those top kids because those kids know that they're going to be playing, obviously, in the biggest venues against the best competition, having the best opportunity to be seen, right? Now, let's go back to high school. Let's say Socorro. Let's say Socorro High School is not known for having deep runs, but they have some talent. They have really good talent on their roster. Maybe not as well as Chapin, but they have some really good talent on their roster. The fact that that team Socorro hasn't been, making the same kind of runs, those kids aren't going to get the same kind of looks. So where they play matters. My school was and still is one of those powerhouse schools that when you mention that school, people know that you are coming from a place that played against really good competition because of what we've produced throughout the years since I was a junior there, right? So you mention that school, hey, yeah, okay. Even if even if the school has a bad year, the mention of that school still brings some cachet to it. Now, if you're playing at a school, I guess what I'm trying to say is you're going to start to see kids because they're doing open enrollment. You're going to start to see kids and parents start to make decisions about what school they go to. They're not just going to go to a school because that school is in their feeder pattern. If, maybe they're close, because parents don't always work close to the school. Parents might work across town. So if there's a school across town that they might be close to, that's a really good school sports wise for the sport their child plays, you're going to start seeing more of that. Now, in the travel circuit, kids are moving travel teams every year. Hell, some of them are doing it 2 or 3 times a year, depending on the travel team. If one travel team is not giving them what they promised, they move to a different one because they're trying to get looks, right? So you have to understand that you're seeing it already in high school. I mean, you've been seeing it in the city and AAU, but you're seeing it more in high school. You take a hard look at a lot of these kids, their address doesn't match up where it should be, but they've made it more of an open enrollment. So you can have a kid go clear across town as long as they're in their district or something. They're making it easier for kids and parents. If you want to travel and go to that school, that's your right. That's fine. Now all of this trying to jump from school to school every year, they ain't letting that happen. But you can put yourself in a great position for a really good school and a really good program early. And that's what you're seeing, and you're going to continue to see it. It's going to get more. It's going to be like you're going to have a high school portal. Kids going to be entering the portal after the second semester to transfer to another school, which is weird. Okay, so I want to put this out there because I always when I'm talking to the kids about stuff, work ethic and stuff, all of these different things when it comes to sports. When I'm talking to the kids that during and after training, I often use NBA players. Why do I use NBA players? Because those are the ones that are most visible. That's who the kids are watching. They watch the NBA, right? So I'm hey, you know what? and basically what I say is, look, you missed shots. You were 1 for 12. Hey, the greatest shooter in the world, Steph Curry, has went 1 for 14 in a game. Then next game he comes out and he goes 10 for 12. So you're gonna have bad games where you miss. You're gonna have bad games where you make bad plays and stuff. That stuff's gonna happen as long as you don't continue to make the same play and you continue to be confident in what you're doing, right? So the reason why I've had to start being careful is because I tell the kids I need you to play with force, with passion. You play hard every game on both sides of the ball. You don't just, you know, go through the motion. But then I watch NBA games and I see some of these NBA players that are doing exactly what I'm telling my kids not to do. So now I have to be careful because there are some NBA players that they don't bring the force that they need to play with every game. And then in some situations they don't perform the way they should. They're not consistent. So I learned that I have to be careful with it because I don't want to send that message to kids that you know you can just play good and then not play when your team needs it. Now you need to play hard every game. You need to play consistent. I'm not saying you can't have bad games because that's going to happen, but you need to play hard every game on both sides, defense and offense. If your shooting's not going in, that's fine, but you need to help the team in other ways. So yeah, I've learned that I can't be telling like, hey, you should play like this, and then I'm looking at that person play, and I'm like, man, this person is really, really not bringing it anymore. This person's just looks like they're just collecting a paycheck. Um, okay, so one other thing, and this kind of goes back to playing high school. That what high school you play matters. You're seeing a lot of jumping from team to team, and parents are thinking it's normal. Jumping from team to team and reclassification. Those are the two big things now that you're hearing a lot of. Parents are trying to reclassify their kids from 11th grade to middle school. Yeah, no, he's gonna be a freshman next year. Freshman? Wasn't he playing varsity last year? No. He's actually younger. He just was in school early and stuff like. Well, how does that work? So you got reclassification. You got parents jumping from school to school. In some situations, I get it and understand it because there are some situations that aren't good. But a lot of this stuff is just, yo, you're not competing, so your spot gets taken. Okay, so we're just gonna move to this school, and we're gonna play for this team. Then you go there and you're playing, but the competition is a little bit more than what you thought. So now you're gonna move to a different team, and it's like, so are you not understanding? Maybe you're not as good as what you need to be. You need to work harder and work. And sometimes doesn't matter how much you work on your game. Sometimes they're just gonna be other players that are better than you. Accept it and do find something that you do better and excel in it. All right. This last thing is just a kind of a question. I want to know from y'all, and y'all can, hit me in the comment section. And you can hit me in the comment section for any of this stuff, obviously. But I kind of want to know how much of a run do you give a team before taking a timeout? Okay, so what do you mean, K? Run? Are you talking about a 4K run? Or are we running a mile? No. What I mean is in sports, especially in basketball, basketball is a game of runs. What I mean is, you know, you might be going, you score, I score. We go down, you miss, I score. Now you score. So it could be going back and forth. But then I might score 11 points in a row and you hadn't scored any points. So I go on an 11-0 run, right? Now I'm up. Let's say you score a couple of more points, buckets. Now I go on another run, and it's a 17-0 run. Means I scored 17 points in a row. You haven't scored a point. Okay, when do you stop a run? Because I've seen games where, coaches don't call timeouts. It's like they refuse to call timeouts. And teams have scored 14, 16. Now, I've seen coaches call a timeout, but they're still, they're not helping. And you get like a 12-0 run. Next thing you know, it's 24-0 run, and it's out of hand. So when do you call it? When I'm watching the game, for me, and here's how I base it. I base it on, okay, if we get a turnover and they score, like a bad pass, they score. We miss a shot, they rebound, they push it out, they score. We get another turnover, they score. I'm calling a timeout. For me, it's probably 6 to 8 points in a row. I think that would always be where I would stop. Now, I want to try to make sure I stop because I know what I'm going to talk a little scientific. The coaches use, they call them ATO plays, after timeout plays. So these are plays that are designed that you have these plays to where when you call a timeout, you want to get that play ran, and it's usually a sideline out of bounds play. And you get that play ran, and you're going to get a good quality shot. So that's what they use often to stem the tide of a run, right? So now, okay, you make that basket, now you come down, now you can lock in on defense. Maybe you hold them to one shot, or you get a turnover, you go down, you get another quality shot. Now the game is back, in the balance for you. But I've seen it to where some coaches don't do that. They don't make that call. They just let them play, and play. So for me, it's 6 to 8 points. Now I remember last year Boston in Game 7, Boston and Philly in Boston, and Boston went on like a 10-0 run. He called a timeout. I think they scored a basket. Then Boston scored the next 12 points. He called another timeout. Right? Then they get back in the game, and it was Philly made a couple of baskets. Then Boston ran on another 8-0 run. He called a timeout. It got bad. Now he was calling them to try to stem the tide, but he actually ran out of timeouts. He didn't have any more to call, and that was one of those games where a player, you could see, and this is my opinion, you could kind of see the body language that they had, that look like we can't beat them, and they didn't play the way you felt they should play, as far as with force and stuff like that. If you know what you're looking for, if you're not just talking to be talking because a person ain't shot, a person can dominate a game without shooting. But if you know what you're looking for, you can tell if players are really going hard or if they're just kind of in the motions, right? And so yeah, that was what was happening, and that's the situation where he was calling the requisite timeouts. He wasn't, trying to just let them play, and he was trying to stem the tide, but it wasn't enough. I know some coaches don't like to call timeouts. They just allow those players to figure it out, and that's usually if you have a veteran team. So my question to y'all would be, because I know I have some coaches that listen to this podcast. Let me know, what's your magic number to use to stop? And then if once you stop it, what do you do? What do you have a sideline out of bounds play, or do you have a play where it's taken out full court so you can, get that play going? Because some coaches like to call those sideline out of bounds. There are some that like to keep the ball down there, and then they don't advance it, and then they let the play come out because they have a certain set that they run. Let me know what you think. All right, so that's going to be all for today. I think I'm back to my normal thing of talking. I know I do have some More people lined up. I think the Zoom is going well. I got so busy. I wasn't able to try to communicate and make sure. So I have to look at my schedule and make sure that I'm going to be able to continue. If not, I might have to take a brief recess where I'm, off a few weeks of not doing it. I can go to Cancun like on Inside the NBA. 1, 2, 3 Cancun. But no, I'm going to really try to set some stuff up, hopefully next week or the week after. I know I have somebody who wants to be on, so I need to try to get that person on. But look, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and comment. Let me know what you're thinking, good, bad, or indifferent. All right, so I'm going to end it the way I always do with everything. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. I'm out.
Street cred sports, say it with your chest. Yeah. Go get it from the net. Street cred sports, okay, that's a bet.